to our quick intro to Archiware Desktop Edition. My co-panelist is Derek.
Hello.
Hi, Derek.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm doing great today.
So, intro slide. It's me from David Fox on the left from the UK, and Derek's also here with me from Pro Video Tech in the US. So he's your distribution partner. If you need to make any inquiries, sales inquiries and that kind of stuff. So let me just minimize this panel. Please feel free to ask questions in the questions panel of GoToWebinar, and we'll answer them at the end. This will take about 20-25 minutes. It's a short webinar. There will be a recording of it, so everybody that registered for the webinar will get a YouTube link, so you can share the webinar with anybody else that you think might be interested. So, into my slides. This is mostly going to consist of a demo, but I'm just going to introduce what P5 Desktop Edition is first. So it's a special bundle from Archiware that was introduced a while back. The US price was, I think, $1,400. During, well, because of the COVID-19 situation where we appreciate people have got data management issues, this bundle is free until the end of July. So it's free right now, and I'll tell you how you can get hold of your free license at the end of the webinar. So P5 Desktop LTO Edition is a bundle of a few different P5 modules, specifically the archive module, which allows you to shift data off your live storage to tape, and it includes some mini media asset management functionality to help you recover and index everything that you're archiving. It also includes the backup module, which protects your data. That's a disaster recovery workflow. It also supports LTFS import and export via the archive module, so you can format LTFS tapes and read and write them. I should have said at the top, really, it supports a single LTO drive. So this is archive and backup to a single LTO drive, plus as many tapes as you want to buy. And we support LTO from any vendor, and we support any generation of LTO. So if you've got an older LTO 6, 7, 8 drive, then those will work right up to a current generation LTO 8 drive. Support for the drive. Then we've got access to local or mounted file systems. So the restriction on the Desktop LTO Edition is that it can only run on a single host, and it can only access file systems available directly on that host. So it doesn't support P5 clients, and it only supports a single LTO drive, and you can't expand it to go for 2 drives or a tape library or start to support disk or cloud storage. Those features are available in the other purchasable P5 products. The whole suite is driven via a web interface, which you'll see in a moment, and the free license is actually a perpetual license, so you own that license forever. You'll be able to use it forever. It includes 3 months of paid support and updates. So you can get email support, and you can get new versions during that 3 months, and then you'll have the opportunity to subscribe for a further year of support and updates, so you can keep running it on latest operating system versions and so on. So the P5 backup and archive modules, what are they? Briefly, P5 backup is backup, it's disaster recovery, it's something that we all need, many probably already have provisioned, but for a small installation with a tape drive attached, it's very useful to be able to back up that machine to tape, and P5 backup will facilitate that by copying the entire data set to tape on a daily basis, identifying changes as an incremental backup will, and then saving those changes each day. It allows you to recover from a disaster. The way that we work with backup is that we don't keep the data forever, so you set a retention period, and we will remove data from the backup after a period of time, making space for new backups. Contrast that with P5 Archive, also writing to tape, but P5 Archive is more about moving your data from your disk storage over to an LTO tape so that you can free up space on the disk. You can take completed jobs, old work, move that somewhere else, and have that easily accessible via a web interface that'll tell you which tape to put in the drive to pull it back. So the archive is intended for keeping stuff for the long term. So you can kind of organize your storage using archive. And this mini media asset management functionality that we include, which you'll see in a moment, helps identify what you've archived in the past and pull it back really easily. This is what your hardware configuration for this license might look like. So I've got our host here being a Mac Mini. This is where P5 is running. You might have some external direct attached storage. Then you're going to have your LTO drive, which will be the Thunderbolt SAS or fiber channel, and then as many tapes over here as you want to purchase. And the capacity of those tapes, just a table here with some stats from the Wikipedia page for LTO. The previous gen LTO 7, 6 terabytes per tape, 300 megabytes per second write. That's a third of a gigabyte a second. LTO 8 is the current gen, 12 terabytes for fits on one LTO cartridge. The speed goes up slightly to 360. LTO 9, which will be around this year or next, I don't think it's quite been decided, will double the capacity per tape, 24 terabytes. And according to the Wikipedia page, it's over 700 megabytes a second speed as well. So we're writing almost a gigabyte a second. So you can really back up an archive at great speed using LTO tape tech. P5 runs either by installing it on the operating system of your choice, including FreeBSD down here, obviously Linux, Mac and Windows. Certain NAS vendors have us included in their stores, so you can just go search on a QNAP for Archiware, click to install us, and then you just need to add the license, your free license, to get the product running on the NAS. Certain brands like QNAP will allow you to attach a tape drive direct onto the SAS port. So that's a really interesting proposition for large storage with a great archiving and backup device attached directly. And if you want to play with a license in the cloud, you can use AWS Marketplace. You can't attach tape hardware here, but it's a great way to deploy P5 on a Linux instance in the cloud to kind of learn about it in the context of this particular license. So the product is configured via the browser-based configuration and administration interface. Just sort of checking that everybody's hearing me okay. Yep. And so you just point your browser at P5 IP address of the host that you're running on, either whether that's the local host if you're running everything on one machine, or if you want to access it over the network for administration, you can do that too. And I'm now going to give you sort of 10 minutes run through where we will install P5 on this Mac that we're looking at. We'll add a license, we'll configure the LTO drive and do some archiving and backing up, and then everything should become visually much more clear. So over here I have the DMG file that I've downloaded from Archiware's download page, where you can always grab the latest installers. And I've mounted the disk image here. So let's run this install package, which is a bog standard Mac install package that we just click through, agree, and authenticate. On Windows, we have an MSI installer. There's various different TGZs or RPM type files for installing on various flavors of Linux available from our download page. Now, as soon as the installation is finished, we will open a browser and pull up our web admin interface, so you don't need to go searching around for it. And once that happens, we can log in with the default username and password. Archiware, since version 6, has its own internal user database and includes a user called admin, for whom the password is admin after an initial installation. We're reminded here to change the password, which is a good idea and can be done by clicking up here on the P5 menu and clicking on change password. Now, at the end of the webinar, I'll tell you how to get hold of a license, but what a license looks like at the point that you need to enter it into the software is like this PDF here. So if I click on enter license in the UI and then add manually using the button down at the bottom, we can tap in our serial number, which is this one. We can choose the product that we are installing, which is the Desktop LTO Edition, as previously mentioned. The license includes the support expiry date, so you get 3 months. So there's the end of September. And the license checksum, which is based upon the host ID, which you can see being delivered here. This is unique to this particular Mac, so you need this number in order to generate the keys in the first place. So there's the license checksum. I apply that, and now you'll see that both the backup and archive tabs at the top of the UI are now lit up, awaiting some further configuration. So let's do that. Let's use this 2 steps to archive your data to kick things off. Now, I have an LTO 5, that's rather ancient, I know, but that's my demo kit. So I have an LTO 5 drive attached to this Mac via a Promise SAN link. Thunderbolt to fiber channel connection, and then my actual standalone drive is fiber channel, but you can use whatever connectivity you want. So when we go into this setup assistant, the first thing we have to do is select our target storage for our backups and archives. This is going to be a single tape drive always with this particular license, and then by adding the tape drive, clicking next, P5 will scan for tape drives. It finds my LTO drive. I click next. I can change the name of it here if I want, or change the LTO generation if it's not been correctly identified. And now we have the opportunity to label media. So there is a tape in my drive, so I will request that it's prepared by Archiware for archive. So I'll do that and hit the label button. And you won't be able to hear it, but my drive is just like whirring into action. So finally, I highlight the drive and select it and click on complete to finish the process. Now the second step is now to actually select data to archive, because all of the configuration has now been done. Briefly, what that means is that we now have what we call a storage pool created, which is a collection of tapes that we will archive to, because I might go buy lots of tapes. So far there's one tape volume in this pool, and that tape volume is identified here. The labeling job is still completing. So whilst that's completing, the wizard has already also created for us an archive plan here. This is our archive configuration, which you can go tweak, but it'll work right out of the box. I'm going to do one thing just to make our demo slightly more interesting, which is under previews here, I'm going to configure the generation of previews of these static image file formats, and we'll archive some JPEGs so you can see what that looks like. So I'm adding a preview generator. I'll just apply that change. So now if I go back to my volume, you can see that it's labeled and it's ready to use. So one way of archiving, and probably the most common with this license, is going to be manual archiving, where I can browse file systems connected. So you'll see here I have a share mounted called data share. I can see that clearly under the manual archiving tab, and then I could come in here and browse and find some JPEGs to archive, add those to my basket. I could continue to browse around, maybe get some cloud photos to archive as well. And when I'm ready to go, I hit the archive button. The archive plan is pre-selected for me. I could type in a job number or some metadata that I also want to be able to search on later, and I start my job. So now my tape drive is being accessed, and if I'm quick and I hit the monitor button, I will see the job running in this job monitor window that shows me a live view of activity. And you can see that it's locating the LTO tape that is in the drive. It's going to write the JPEGs, and it's going to generate little previews of them, and the job is finished. So it's a very small job for this demo because I don't want it to run for long, and there was no winding necessary. And now I've archived, and I can continue to archive in that manner. When I want to recover something, I go to the Restore tab, I click on Archive. There's an index here, which is a database of all of my archiving. I can have several of these if I wish. And then if I click into the archive, I can see the path from which I archived. And when I get down to a folder where there were some files, I can see those files, including the previews that were generated, and I can have larger previews to look at if I want to. I can double click on one of these files to see both the thumbnail, the tape, the name of the tape that it's been archived to, the location, which is currently in the drive, and any metadata that I've assigned, which can both be manually entered or actually ingested from within the files themselves if you have embedded metadata in the stuff that you want to archive. I can search, so I could come in here and I could search for description, starts with 1, 2, 3, which probably finds all the files that I archived, and so on. Once I've decided that I want to recover something, I add that to a restore selection, and once I tell P5 where I want to restore it back to, the next window will identify which tape or tapes are needed to perform that restore, and then I can get those ready in the drive before I hit start to actually trigger the restore. Okay, that's our whirlwind tour of setting up an archive and doing a little bit of archiving. The final thing I'll show you is under the backup tab. Again, we have 3 steps to back up your data. So let's follow the setup assistant. Step 1 is what would you like to back up? So I will select simply the applications folder from this Mac. Step 2 is the target storage. So I will select the tape drive that's already been added to the P5 configuration. And step 3 is what time of day do you want this backup to be scheduled to run. So I could choose 11 o'clock instead of 10, and finally click to complete. So my backup plan is now configured. Now, because I'm going to use the same tape for backing up as I was for archiving, I am going to manually label a tape. So this, there is now a tape backup pool. So a pool, remember, is a collection of tapes, but currently there are no tapes in it. So I'm going to go visit my standalone Tandberg LTO drive and perform a label job, choosing my backup pool and erasing the tape because there's already data on it. This will run again in the job monitor, just like the previous job. So you'll see it tells you what it's doing. It's currently rewinding the tape. It's going to write what we call a label onto the tape, which is identifies that tape physically when the tape's in the drive. And once it's written the label, then we can do a backup. Now that setup wizard will also have created for us a backup plan, which lives here and looks like this. So you can see the backup is backing up the applications folder. I could go and change that to back up other folders. And down here, there's a scheduler saying running at 2300 hours. I will be able to, via the job monitor, you can see my backup has a little clock next to it, meaning it's going to run at 2300 hours on the 18th of June this evening. If I click the Start Now button to start that job right now, then we will see that job running, and it will figure out that it's got the right tape from the backup pool to back up that applications folder. And then, because that will run for a little while, there's a few gigabytes worth of data in there, we will see some stats about the speed at which that job is now running once the tape gets positioned correctly. So you can see here it tells us which file it's currently on. It tells us the instantaneous speed that it's writing at, plus an average speed of around 100 megabytes per second, which is 355 gig per hour. So a terabyte about every 3 hours, reading from this internal SSD in this Mac at about 100 megabytes a second. So yeah, it's really as easy as that. I can highlight this job and cancel it. And then I've got a whole wealth of tools within this interface. The very last thing I'll show you is under Archive. We have this LTFS Exchange panel, which is supported by this P5 Desktop LTO Edition license, which allows us to prepare tapes as LTFS and read and write those tapes. The backup and the archive modules are not using LTFS format tapes. They're using a proprietary Archiware format to provide all the functionality that we're seeing. But you can also import and export and use LTFS tapes as a media sort of transfer. To transfer files on a LTFS tape media. Okay, so in order to quieten down the noise of the tape drive, I'm going to cancel this job, which is already backed up about 7 gigabytes, and flick back to my slides, where I'll just very briefly talk about how you get hold of a license. So to get hold of this free license, you go to archiware.com/desktop LTO edition. We'll send you a PDF of these slides so you have all of this information to hand. And when you get there, you will need to fill out a form to request your free LTO edition license. You'll get an email whereby you'll get a serial number. Then we have this website called the Archiware portal, which is our license management portal, and you'll need to create an account in the Archiware portal and then input the license details and input that host ID that I showed you earlier that comes out of the software once you've installed it. With a combination of those two things, you can generate your permanent key to activate the software. And with that, my presentation has finished. So that was 20 minutes. So I would be happy to answer any questions anybody would like to tap into the questions panel within the GoToWebinar interface. I've got a question that was typed earlier regarding vendors for LTO drives. So yes, we will support any LTO drive currently in existence. We have seen all different brands already with a product, and everything works just fine. Obviously, we support tape libraries too, but not with this free, low-cost, well, you know, it's low-cost after the end of July license. But we support everything from all vendors, and we support all generations of LTO going all the way back to LTO1 if anybody still has an LTO1 drive that works. So yeah, that's fine. And yes, we support any brand of tapes too. Okay. It's worth pointing out that there are obviously more full-featured Archiware licenses. This is a cut-down license really intended for maybe one-man band, photographer, videographer, small shops where you've got one machine which is maybe getting clogged up with a lot of data, and it's nice to be able to utilize LTO capacities to do archiving to shift stuff away. Question here, do you need to label multiple tapes for a job that extends beyond the capacity of a single tape? Yes, you do. So what you would do in that instance is you would go, as I did earlier, to your LTO drive here, and then you would label another tape. So I would eject the tape that is already in the machine and then label another one. So that would give me, 2 tapes worth of capacity. So you need to anticipate how much archiving you're going to do or backing up you do and get those tapes labeled. If you're going to buy 10 tapes with the intention of archiving to them, then it might be a good idea just to label all 10, let's say, on day 1, and then put them on the shelf and then just put them in as you need them. So Diego, I hope that answers that question adequately for you. So last chance to answer any other questions if you've got them. Can you think of anything else that we've missed, Elke or Derek? Or anything that you'd like to add?
I'm not sure if I missed it, but this does come, the free bundle does come with 3 months of support, and you can purchase additional time for support and maintenance through one of our authorized dealers.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I did mention it, but yeah, it's good to reiterate that this license comes with 3 months worth of it comes with 3 months worth of email support and access to the latest versions. So after that, if you want to keep that rolling, then there will be a fee for 12 months. And then the further 12 months, you can just keep the support rolling for as long as you need it. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. So I'll let you all go. Hope that was informative. Hope you learned something. Another question coming in.
Okay.
I'll just answer this one, Elke. Can you append another tape to the backup after a tape is filled up during a backup process that needs more tapes? Yeah, you can. So we will always take the tape that isn't yet full and continue writing data to it until it's filled. We're also able to span large files across tapes. So if you're writing huge video files, either archiving them or backing them up, we will if we're in the middle of a file, we will span that file. So the first half will be on one tape and then it will continue writing on the next tape. So I think that answers your question. I'm just rereading it to make sure I haven't misunderstood in any way. Append another tape to a backup after a tape is filled. Yeah. So yeah, as you're running a backup, if you fill a tape, then either you've got a labeled tape ready, or you can label a tape at that point that you need another one, and then the backup will continue writing after the tape's been labeled. And that answers the question. So thanks for confirming. So yeah, any other questions? I'll count down from 10. I think we're probably good. Okay, well, if I see one pop up, I'll answer it, but I think we're done. So thanks again, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you at the next P5 webinar next week.
Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yep.